The other day two story impacting the run for the White House, the resignation of Jim Johnson, the man who had been running Senator Obama's vice presidential search team, stepping down yesterday because of the preferential treatment for personal loans Mr. Johnson had evidently gotten from Countrywide Financial, a company which Senator Obama and others have blamed for helping to create the subprime mortgage crisis. At his news conference today, Senator McCain using that as an opening to attack Eric Holder, the former deputy attorney general in the Clinton administration, who is still vetting vice presidential candidates for Senator Obama.
I think that it is a matter of record that Mr. Holder recommended the pardoning of Mr. Rich, and all of those things will be taken in consideration by the media and the American people, especially when you are entrusting individuals with one of the most important decisions that a presidential candidate can make before that individual is elected, and that is who the running mate is.
As you may know, Senator McCain having entrusted that most important decision to a man named Arthur Culverhouse, the Arizona Republican exhibiting no irony today over the fact that Mr. Culverhouse is, say it with me now, a former lobbyist. Even better, or perhaps that should read even worse, he used to lobby for Fannie Mae, the mortgage company where Mr. Jim Johnson once served as chairman and CEO. Let's turn now, as promised, to our own Rachel Maddow, also host of her own show on weeknights on Air America Radio. Rachel, good evening.
Hi, Keith.
Yesterday, Senator Lieberman said, in effect, a free pass for Mr. McCain on anything he says about Iraq because he's a Vietnam vet. Today, Senator McCain was outraged at conduct in the Obama campaign that really would be only about average corruption in the McCain campaign. In pushing for what looks like, from the outside, a double standard, do the Republicans put themselves at some sort of risk?
If they get called out on it. I mean, this is a classic glass houses problem. But it's the glass houses phenomenon only works if people are willing to actually throw the metaphorical rocks at the guy who is standing in his glass house, flinging them at others. We have seen John McCain denounce Barack Obama as the candidate of special interests, even while he's in the midst of a half-hearted lobbyist purge from his campaign. We've in fact seen John McCain denounce Barack Obama as the party of old government, the old in terms of thinking about the guy who's been in Washington too long. We've seen John McCain denounce Barack Obama for a position that McCain himself held on Social Security taxes. We've seen McCain's supporters denounce Barack Obama for wanting to meet with Hamas, even though between the two candidates, only John McCain has ever proposed something remotely like that. So we've seen this time and time and time again in terms of McCain essentially being able to get away with making accusations about things he himself is guilty of, more guilty of than Barack Obama, and he just doesn't seem to get called on it, at least not yet.
Well, I got 11 and a half minutes worth of rocks for later in the show if you want to stick around. One thing it would seem the McCain campaign is doing terrifically at is working the refs early in the game. There was one question to him today about John Kerry's reaction to the "that's not too important" line. No follow-up. Countdown had this story. Newsweek had this story. Phil Gramm, the uber lobbyist, one question to McCain out of the rest of the press corps. Has the McCain campaign successfully intimidated the media at this point?
The McCain campaign has two things going on with the media. One is that they are, behind the scenes, being very aggressive in terms of lobbying media left, right, and center in terms of the way they want McCain to be spoken about. They're lobbying the media, for example, on taxes, saying that we should be describing, members of the media should be describing what Barack Obama wants to do with rolling back Bush's tax cuts as a tax increase, not as a rollback of Bush's tax cuts. And some members of the media go along with that sort of thing. I think some others, more rightfully, see that as a subject of a news story about how John McCain's trying to manipulate the media. But the other thing that he's got going for him is essentially his 26 years in Washington, having been a darling of the media on purpose, having cultivated a relationship with the media that involves them giving him the benefit of the doubt. Like you were talking about with Howard Feynman earlier, this sort of leeway that he's given so that we talk about what he really meant rather than what he said. The only way you get to that sort of relationship with the media is if you have a relationship with reporters that you think you can call on that supersedes your actual record and what you're actually on tape saying.
So are these two things connected in some way? He's been there 26 years, and for about the same length of time, we've been hearing about the damned liberal media, and this was the one guy who didn't say that often, and now he's calling in his chits because he didn't whine about it the way everybody else did on the right?
I wonder. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a campaign trail reporter, and I don't know what goes through people's minds when they decide what they are going to report. But I do know that the false sense of balance, the false sense of if I'm going to report one side of this, I better report the other, more frequently goes toward not giving us actual balance, but giving us two sides of stories that sometimes really only have one real side. That has been true for too much of the Bush administration, and it seems to be true of the campaign trail so far. I have been disappointed that now that we're in the general election, we're not seeing more scrutiny to Senator McCain.
Then what is that phrase, balance? It means having the truth and equating it with a liar. Rachel Maddow of MSNBC and Air America, as always. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, Keith.